Ala. Zala Degyo. So that's Uda for good morning. So we are all telling you good morning, or whether you woke up, whether you have woken up this morning. So obviously you have. So good to see you. Would the Uda Practicum members please stand? It's also on. Yes, thank you. Aminkre enobasi purwa. The instructor Uda Practicum. Uda Path to Discoveries. So my name is Enobasi Urwa. That was Uda 001. So I'd like to so thank you. So this morning we are going to listen to the work that we have done in the last 4 weeks. I've had a very interesting group of people to work with in the practicum, 2 consultants and 7 course participants. And I found out that they are very, very hardworking people, high achievers, they are perfectionists. They won't settle for anything but the best, and they've really, really worked hard in the past 4 weeks. So I'd like to thank them for the experience. So what we are going to do first of all is to present an overview of what we have done. I'll skip through most of the slides because it's something that you have seen already about the background to Uda. So that's the map of Nigeria, the language map, the map of the states in which Uda is located, Akwa Ibom State, and where the University of Uyo is also located. So that's a map of Mbo local government area, what is equivalent to a county here, and Uda, you can see, is here, and that's the Atlantic Ocean. So Uda is also listed in Ethnologue with the ISO code, and approximately 10,000 speakers. It's a lower cross language of the Niger-Congo group or language family, and other lower cross languages are listed. And we see these as language clusters rather than different languages altogether. That's the Ethnologue map, language map. Uda is close to the bottom, it's number 480 on the map. So Uda has very little research history. At the time we started the practicum, we just had some word lists, some done by Bruce Cornell, some done by the Department of Linguistics, some references to the language in the literature of lower cross languages, a phonological sketch of the language presented at a conference paper last year, and then we have some undergraduate students and graduate students working on the language. There was no history of writing, and there was no orthography as at the time we started this practical. So we have titled this overview, Path to Discovery, because we have discovered so much about the language in such a short time. So for our methodology, We adopted a bilingual approach because it was too stressful to just do a monolingual thing. This is a very different language. It's a tone language, so it would have been very, very difficult. It could have been done, but we knew we didn't have too much time, so we adopted a bilingual approach. And we had elicitations using the audio AD-Roll and video recorders. We also made use of the iPad. We used the Swedish word lists as prepared by Claire Bowen. We also used materials from SIL, some of the materials by Kate Snyder, and we made our own paradigms, especially for the verbs. And we also used materials from MPI in Nijmegen. We had storytelling sessions, we had songs. We are going to listen to some of them. We had dance. And we had cultural materials, clothing, food, counting system. For our discoveries, we found out that there are, in addition to what we found last year, we found additional evidence for additional sounds in the language, such as B and J, post-palatal affricates. And we proposed for the vowel phonemes, instead of 6 that we had last year, we have 7 because we have evidence, as we shall see later, to show that the vowel A and E actually contrast. And we also looked at a number of phonological processes, including vowel hiatus, resolution strategies. We looked at very interesting tone processes in the diagram. And more discoveries. We looked at the syntax of the language. The nominals always begin with vowels or nasal prefixes, and the verbs always begin with the consonants. For the basic word order is subject followed by a verb and the object. And for the noun phrase, you have the noun followed by the modifier, but if you have a quantifier, it follows or it precedes the noun. We have lots and lots of serial verbs, and you're going to find very interesting examples. WH questions, modals, and we found logophores, which is common. There's some literature on it in West African languages. Reflexives, pronouns. We looked at transitive and intransitive verb forms. And we did discover that the syntacticians amongst us may have to revisit the way we actually classify transitivity, because we discovered that in addition to the clearly transitive verbs and intransitive ones, you have another class of verbs that would ordinarily be described as intransitive, but they take some kind of object. So I think this is something very interesting. We also had idiophones. We had discourse analysis, as we shall see, because if you just listen to maybe a song or a story, without an analysis, you may miss a lot of interesting things, features, stylistic features. So these are some of the things that we worked on in the past 4 weeks. And we had products to show. So at the beginning, there was no orthography. Now, I'm glad to say we have an orthography. We have a draft orthography for the language. We have an ebook. We have a YouTube video. We have a lot of corpora, a lot more corpora than we started out with, for community use, for researchers, for teaching and learning purposes, and much more. So, and these are the people that made that possible. The names are listed according to alphabetical order, apart from the consultants. Chris Abaseyo, a language consultant. Fona Samai, another language consultant. And then for the participants, Caroline Andrews, Amy Brunet, Leland Kusma, Catherine Ruffin, Imelda Udo, Fonodoyan, Brandon Wiggins, and myself. So thank you very much, and please listen to the interesting things we are going to the participants are going to talk about. But first of all, we are going to listen to a short Uda story. Move on, please. It's the monkey story.
Before I proceed, as a child I was meant to believe that it was a taboo to tell this kind of tale in the daytime. It's usually reserved for the night when people come back from work, from the market, everything. And one day I actually told my mom to tell me a story in the daytime, and she said, if I ever get to do that, your growth rate will become stunted, you become a dwarf. So I had to go to my father, who was the educated one. I said, is it true? Because I had this habit of always going to him, and he was always debunking every myth my mother made me to believe. So he said, the reason is not true. The reason is that tales in the afternoon are always told by idle people. Oh, and no sane person will want to tell a tale in the afternoon. So I went back to my mom and said, Papa said, it's not true. She said the only way that growth rate could be reversed is when you send a message, you use the God in sending a message to God that God should give you permission to tell a tale in the afternoon. So we say, you know, Oyoni mama vieji guko tu vieji tu. E yang mama ko baba mposi sanne. Mama rinyo. Mama ri garo be busy. Ko yo ma fra fio. Oyo me vieji fio. Oyo ko siba. Mama no so go ya guko. Oyo no so vieji tu. E yang mama ko mposi sanne. Mama rinyo. Ono so ri do be ko yo ma fra fio. Ani no yo ko site. Ami mama guko. Oyo mama no so tonji. Oba mo don't give you go my lapre, and a year of ma. Mboyo minkan can no be, Manare seated, a bogri be made up. Mamma gobo. Big aga. Oba you and mam, a neo young tea. Aga tongue brembe. Mamma tongue bibi, and bibi, and bangotong, and bibi, and bangotong. It was go your BHU. Or walking near me, mamma long young. Mamma no quick walk. Oh, yeah, tinty, yeah. Oh, yeah, tinty, yeah. Uragoyong, yeah, tinty, yeah. Ugogoyong, yeah, tinty, yeah. Dayori, yeah, tinty, yeah. Dayori, yeah, tinty, yeah. Dayori, yeah, tinty, yeah. Dayori, yeah, tinty, yeah. Oh, yori song ma, mamma young. Oh no, say, Mamma no so boy aguko, Baba no so di you, I have a you. Mamma no so bibi, Mamma bibi. I got in you young. Mamma no so quo. Oh, yeah, tinty, yeah. Oh, yeah, tinty, yeah. Uragoyong, yeah, tinty, yeah. Ugogoyong, yeah, tinty, yeah. Dayori, yeah, tinty, yeah. Dayori, yeah, tinty, yeah. Dayori, yeah, tinty, yeah. Dayori, yeah, tinty, yeah. Oh, no, yori so ma. I no season. I'm a bien mamma go to you now. If your mamma naga go, if your mamma got giga, mamma gala review. Other man, I say, oh, you below. If your mamma go young go for, I got a mamma. Abasi. And I'll get for you, my fan of you. A young repeat it. Send it again. Man, won't wake on a fruit lady, any make it good at a book. mamoko, kenobo, asari boyo, agagani mo, iri dribi. If you mamoko, mamoko, obo. Obo don't give you go on a land. Obo don't give you go on a land. How many we say poor is I long as city gong na medium or for miri. And then no sin. Man on sorry go go. Obo boyo, agagani. Man baby. Ogo in union. Man on also poor. Obo. Obo. Uragoyang, Ukagoyang, Yantinti, Dayori, Yantinti, Dayori, Yantinti, Dayori, Yantinti, Dayori, Yantinti, Oh, one night to go young cherry, my young man go. If you mam, I get it, I didn't know you gave big uko, or Pekangabon is raka. Oh, what together? I you no mam. If you mam, I need chicken bone. Boh! Oh, what again? Aya, that's you. You can't got you. Boh! Otto, you and mamma. Oh, not on you. Any mean therefore, I've been known also. Again, native brain of it, of a long you it is in Mosso, money young. Oh, one eye young. You can't care. Long and draining.
The monkey story, and then some of the things that analysis that we have done has been based on that story. So that's why we thought we should tell it and share it with you. So Phon is going to tell us about the phonology of the language.
Ila inga miani Phon Uda yang amin ditang iko mbanga phonology Uda. That's just to say good morning. My name is Phon Uda yang. I'll talk about Uda phonology. Actually this is work in progress, so don't expect a finished product. The phonology of Uda is similar in many respects to other lower cross languages. It has tones, it has tonal processes, and some of the other similarities is that there are things like word final stop devoicing, intervocalic consonant weakening, and vowel hiatus resolution strategies. I will look at. We'll look at some of those. Can you hear me? Yeah. So, tentatively, we've kind of established 24 phonetic consonants for Uda language, and you can see the list on the board. And I've also seen 10 phonetic vowels in the language, as well as 5 phonetic tones. I don't want to go through one by one the sound, but I'll just skip that. But we also, for the tones, we have level tones which are high, low, and then a downstepped high, and then we have contour tones which are falling tone and rising tone. Actually, the falling tone is a combination of a high and low, and the rising tone is a combination of a low and high. And on the last line, we have the representation of tones that are, the peculiar representation for lower cross languages. So the acute accent is for high tone generally in the lower cross languages. That's how they are represented. And the grave accent represents the low tone, and the exclamation mark there represents the downstepped high tone. And well, the circumflex, and then we jokingly call the last one the drunken V because it's kind of inverted. So that actually represents the rising tone. So here's the phonemic consonant chart for Uda language. We have 20 sounds, like phonemic sounds in the language. Actually, one of these, the voiced velar fricative, you can see it's asterisk because we are not 100% certain, but for now we consider it as a phonemic sound. And so basically there are, pardon me here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 stops. And what's the pointer, please?
Oh, it's on the side.
It's on the side here.
No, over here, over here.
Okay.
So anyways, so yeah, so what's really unique about this language is the two sounds that you see, well, the voiced counterpart of the labial velar sound. In other lower cross languages, we only have the voiceless, it's called by labial velar plosive, but in Uda, it is actually occurring as a phoneme. That's actually something that's very unique. And then the affricate. Other lower cross languages, well, most other lower cross languages don't have the affricate as a phoneme. Rather, they have them as allophones of some other phoneme. So that's really unique too. And in Ibibio, one of the most, I would say, yeah, the most studied, I don't want to say the most popular, but the most studied lower cross languages find that P and B, I mean the voiceless and the voiced bilabial plosives, they are actually allophones of the same phoneme. So the voiceless counterpart will occur in word final position, whereas the voiced counterpart occurs in initial position. But in Uda, we have actually seen minimal pairs, which indicate that these two sounds are actually phonemes. That's about that for the phonemic consonant chart. I'll just skip to the vowels. So we have 7 phonemic vowels in Uda. We have the 4 front vowels and 3 back vowels. And we have 2 close, 2 mid close, 2 open mid, and 1 open. So actually it's a very symmetrical system. In the next slide, I tried to provide exemplars and minimal pairs where I was able to find those. And so with regard to the voiceless and voiced bilabial plosives, you can see the word for plain and summary, which is panga. I'm not an Uda speaker, but I'll try my best. So it is panga, whereas the one with the voiced bilabial plosive is banga. You can see both words actually have the same tonal pattern, high, high, but they only differ with regard to the initial consonant. So you also have T and D. Now I have to say that in Uda, what you know in English as the alveolar plosive actually realized as dental sounds in the language. So ordinarily an Uda person, instead of saying something like 10, as the English would say, would rather say 10. So this is actually how the sound is pronounced in the language. So that's why we have this diacritic under the T and under the D. And so we have a ka for hold, pa, and bu, which I couldn't actually find a minimal pair for this too, but I mean there is evidence that actually there are, it's a phoneme in the language. So then we have the word for cat, which is more, and then we have the word for give, which is no. These 2 words can show for certain that the bilabial nasal and the alveolar nasal are actually allophones in the language. And we also have the velar nasal and the palatal nasal. So based on the fact that these sounds actually occur in initial position, you can be sure that they are, okay. I will skip through this one, and these are actually just examples to show the vowels and their occurrences stuff. And so what's really unique about this language is the tone, and if Chris or Fon, I would like, for the benefit of those people who don't speak tonal language, tone is just, use of pitch over syllable for lexical and grammatical distinction. So basically you have the same set of statements, but the only difference is in tone or in the pitch that each syllable carries, and that pitch, that difference alone will just bring about the main difference. So please, Chris, if you could say the word for laugh and be burnt.
Sa. Sa. That's laugh. Sa. Sa. That's for burnt.
Fon, could you please say the word for lump and knock on the head?
Okay. For the long is A-fong, A-fong, A-fong. Then for the knock on the head is A-fong, A-fong, A-fong.
Well, so you have this difference. You can see the words are actually spelled in the same way, but they only differ in the tones and, in the pitch of voice. And because this pitch of voice is actually having, it writes over, the influence is on a syllable, that's why it's called tone. If it were, like, it's different from intonation. In the case of intonation, you have the difference over an entire sentence. All right, so there are certain phonological processes that we found in this language. Like there is the word final consonant unreleased, there's intervocalic consonant weakening, there's vowel elision to resolve hiatus, there's other things like tonal modifications, like I'll just briefly talk about, just show slides for a few of them. So if you have the word final, these are examples of word closes in language, so we have p, t, and k. Ordinarily, when they occur in word final position, they are not released. So somebody would not ordinarily say edp, but rather say edp with the final closing unreleased. Somebody would not say obot, but he would say obot with the final t unreleased. And somebody would not say sock, but he would say sock with the final unreleased. So also, when you have this voiceless stops in intervocalic position across word boundaries, what happens is that they become weakened. So you have the P in sub ile, when you have, to the right, you have sub ile, when in an intervocalic position, the P weakens to a fricative, so you have the voice bilabial fricative there. And also, we have the sock ile, like supposed to be like wipe your body, and because of the intervocalic position across word boundaries, that's so it becomes a velar fricative. So you have that symbol there. Anyways, so actually there are a lot of other languages don't generally like hiatus. Hiatus is a situation where you have two adjacent vowels across word boundaries. Languages don't normally like those, so they find ways to resolve them one way or the other. So these ways are like some of the ways that languages do that. They do it by gliding, by deletion. So sometimes especially if it was one of the vowels was the high vowel, there will be gliding, so that E, the high front vowel, becomes kind of a yeah, and then U, the high back vowel, becomes W, and then sometimes there's just deletion. One of the vowels just deletes, and sometimes too there's kind of assimilation. Unfortunately, I don't have examples here. I have them in some other piece of paper, so I couldn't put that up here. But that's basically what happens when you have this situation. And well, You also have tonal processes. So what happens is that when you have words in citation forms, they have a different tonal pattern. But when these words combine in constructions, the tonal pattern will change. So if I had this correctly, you have the word for sama, which has a low-high tonal pattern. But when you have it in nsama, the low-high tonal pattern changes so that you have the low-low pattern. And also for, well, I think I'll just keep that. So I think that should be my section for now. Thanks.
Next presentation will be the orthography and